After leaving Wano, the Mugiwaras arrived on the island of the future, Egghead. Here they met the world's greatest scientist, Vegapunk, and decided to save his life from the Navy and the world government. As a result, not only CP0 with Rob Lucci, but also an admiral was sent to this island. Here we have the stage for the great battle between Admiral and Yonkou, Luffy vs Kizaru. And if you want to know how this battle happened, follow along with me. Preparation. After meeting the real Vegapunk by chance, Luffy and the Mugiwaras decide to protect his life and help him escape from the island. This decision resulted in Luffy fighting Rob Lucci, a battle that I've already summarized here on the channel. But after that, all the exits from the island were blocked by the world government, and Kizaru himself mobilized a gigantic fleet directly to Egghead to end Vegapunk's life once and for all. Not only is Kizaru with a huge fleet of ships going to Egghead, but Saturn himself, one of the Gorosei. He's going to make sure Vegapunk dies, and who knows, he might even be Luffy's final enemy in this arc. This fleet that is now laying siege to Egghead is comparable to a national fleet, one capable of even surpassing the Buster Call. This fleet is made up of 100 ships, 20 of which are battleships. Sailing on them are a total of 30,000 sailors, but among them there are 9 vice admirals and an admiral leading them all. Before attacking, the Navy forces prepare. Kizaru is one of them, who now speaks via Den Mushi with Sentomaru asking him to surrender. Here we discover the relationship between the two of them and the Vegapunk. It was by studying Kizaru's lasers that Vegapunk was able to create the pacifist's laser. But ironically, Kizaru himself was sent to kill Vegapunk for studying the lost century. Even so, he knows that this battle is not beneficial to the Navy, since everything they destroy will be a priceless loss to themselves. Gorosei, on the other hand, is hiding inside one of the ships, just waiting for the right moment to enter the battle and turn the tide. Inside the island, the Straw Hats are trapped in the Vegapunk's laboratory. They can't escape until the laser shield protecting the lab is removed. With that, the Vegapunks will try to break down the barrier, and Luffy's group will go to Sunny to take him to the northeast part of the island. Outside, the Navy remains in position. Before attacking, Kizaru talks to Gorosei Saturn about the information they received from Rob Lucci, about everyone being trapped in the laboratory and how Kizaru can easily pass through this laser barrier because he is made of light. But at first, the Admiral doesn't want to do this because he wants to match his friend Sentomaru's choice to betray the Navy and continue protecting Vegapunk. He plans to defeat Sentomaru first and take the command key of the 50 Pacifist Mark III from Egghead. With that, they'll be able to control the Kings of the Seas and the whole island will return to Navy control. What's more, they know the location of the factory that produces the weapon of mass destruction Mather Flame. Meanwhile, all 30,000 men are preparing for battle. Their plan is to free all the government agents, suppress the attack by the Kings of the Seas and take control of the island without too many casualties. Kizaru vs Sentomaru. From one of the ships, Kizaru uses his beam of light to pass through all the island's defenses and head straight for Sentomaru. He orders the pacifists to attack the Navy with all their might. At the tip of the beam of light, Kizaru rushes at Sentomaru, preparing to kick him. Sentomaru protects himself using his weapon's haki and declares that he has the greatest defense in the world. At the top of the island, Luffy senses that a very strong enemy has arrived on the island and makes a face of terror at the presence of the Admiral. Meanwhile, a real war breaks out on the edge of the island. Pacifists and the King of the Seas attack the Navy, which in turn strikes back with all its might. Back to Kizaru's attack, Sentomaru couldn't take the Admiral's kick, so he's sent away with a two-toned lightning bolt. The Admiral continued to fire consecutive shots of light at him, but the Vegapunk guard simply runs away from these shots to where his axe is. Picking it up, Sentomaru leaps at the Admiral with all his might. Shouting that he only cares about the Vegapunk's safety, he tries to slash the Admiral, but Kizaru dodges and turns into light. Here Kizaru has a little flashback to when they first met. Then Sentomaru manages to slap him in the face with haki that deals damage. Then he launches an absurd laser beam, at close range, which roasts Sentomaru to the ground. He is defeated and Kizaru takes back control of the pacifists on the island. Then the Navy begins to take control of the island once again. Luffy vs Kizaru. With a beam of light, Kizaru manages to overcome the laser shield easily. He faces Vegapunk's lab and reaffirms the things he can't destroy, otherwise everyone will suffer. Just as Kizaru was about to destroy the Mugiwara's ship, Luffy himself stands in front of the Admiral and attacks with a Flying King's haki. With a confident smile, Luffy declares that he is 100 times stronger than the last time they met. The battle begins with Luffy in Gear 4 Snakeman, a form focused on speed to attack Kizaru faster than he can defend himself, or dodge quickly. But strangely Luffy isn't using the King's haki in his blows, which Kizaru defends without too much trouble with beams of light in his hands. After that, Kizaru flies away from the edge of the island like a beam of light. From the sky, at an absurd distance, he prepares his light attack. He declares that acceleration is power, and transforms his body into light that travels along the path inside another beam of light created by him, gaining absurd speed. In the blink of an eye, he appears in front of Luffy with a lightning-fast two-handed slash. That sends Luffy through Vega Force 1, Vegapunk's giant robot. Not only that, but Luffy is sent flying away from his owner, hit by the barrier's lasers and taking a lot of damage. Without Luffy around, Bonnie even tries to attack the Admiral, but he easily dodges and throws her away with a kick that has no impact. But she also ends up being thrown into the laser barrier because of her speed. Just as Frankie was about to attack him with his radical beam, the Admiral disappears. So Frankie calls the lab to see if everyone is okay. But to everyone's amazement, the Admiral appears in their midst. But before Kizaru could do anything, a gigantic Luffy appears and grabs the Admiral. Kizaru is caught off guard, and is still amazed by Gear 5's mystical form. Luffy thought he was going to die by crossing the laser barrier twice, but now he's back in battle. With the greatest freedom in the world, the giant Luffy laughs while holding Kizaru. Unlike the others, he doesn't have his expressions distorted, as Kizaru's grace lies in his always serene expression. Luffy then spins Kizaru around at high speed to throw him off the island and into the sea. At risk of falling into the sea and drowning, Kizaru remains calm despite the risk. He crosses his arms and makes a little curve before falling into the sea. After getting a little distance from the water, he uses his light particle attack. Then he dismantles his body while being directed back to the island. When Luffy looks up, he's surrounded by particles of light. But instead of them becoming a single Kizaru, they become his army, to Luffy's astonishment. They all use swords of light that even cut Luffy when they hit. Luffy even manages to destroy some of them, but sees that they're not very effective. So he starts running while being chased by everyone in a line. But this was just Luffy's tactic to destroy them all at once with one kick, only to discover that the real Kizaru wasn't among the light clones. When he looks again, Kizaru is already in the lab grabbing Usopp by the neck. Meanwhile Vegapunk has left the lab for the lower part of the island. Just as Kizaru was about to launch a laser to kill the Vegapunk by destroying his Vega tank, Luffy jumps in and literally eats Kizaru's light shot. He then expels the light through every possible hole in his body. They continue to exchange blows, but Kizaru declares that his mission is to kill Vegapunk, so he can't waste time with Luffy over there. Only Luffy says that, unlike him, this is exactly his mission. When Kizaru takes off like a beam of light after the Vegapunk, Luffy tries to chase him by running through the air. But then all the strongest people on the island feel the chills of a terrifying presence. Then Nagorasei Jaya Garcia Saturn himself appears on the battlefield revealing his dark Akuma no Mi power, in the form of a spider mixed with a bull. With his power he even blows the head off a sailor who wasn't allowed to look at him in this form. Kizaru takes the opportunity to attack the Vega tank in an attempt to kill it with a beam of light. He misses the first shot, but just as he's about to launch the second, Luffy appears behind him, preparing his pure muscle arm to launch his attack. But it's Kizaru who strikes first, hitting Luffy with his laser. Even though it did some damage, it was only enough to make Luffy spin around like a piao. Then Luffy gained enough momentum to launch his new star gun attack, an absurd punch with weapon and King's Haki, which goes through Kizaru's head, turning him into rubber and creating stars as an impact effect. With his expression unchanged, Kizaru takes all the damage, and thinks to himself that it wasn't good. After that, Luffy reaches the limit of Gear 5 and falls facing Gorosei Saturn, while Kizaru is sent flying away by the impact of this attack. After that, the Gorosei Saturn began its attack on the Mugiwaras. When the sailors were going to take this chance to capture the Vegapunk, the Gorosei himself says there's no need, the situation is under control. He tells a Kizaru lying on the ground that this time he was slower than expected. He apologizes, but for now he can't move after Luffy's attack. Gorosei understands why, so he attacks a prune Luffy on the ground. But before one of his paws can cross Luffy's body, Frankie uses his punch to throw him away and then grabs him back to himself. Gorosei then recognizes that Luffy has a strong team and that it was unexpected that they were in this battle. Here we can say that the Luffy vs Kizaru battle is over. Because the two are out of combat and the Gorosei seems to be Luffy's final enemy in this arc. But we can say that Luffy won this battle because the reason they're both down is different. Luffy is down because his transformation is over, and Kizaru is down because he took a super blow from Luffy.